We finally have the funding and time for the new game. Looks like an allocation of 4 whole years. How do we reintroduce Devil May Cry to the public? Oh, it's been a while. According to Capcom, Devil May Cry 5 has sold over 6 million copies. Critically, Devil May Cry 5 was considered a top 10 game of the year. More importantly than all that trash, I liked it. Coming back from a failed reboot, it had been 11 years since the last proper Devil May Cry game. That's no small amount of time. Devil May Cry left the world in the era where hack-and-slash games were a dime a dozen, and re-emerged into the post-Minecraft, post-Skyrim, and post-Dark Souls world, where games can only be compared to Minecraft, Skyrim, and Dark Souls. What did Capcom do to ready this world for Devil May Cry? How do you reintroduce a franchise after a decade off the shelf? Turns out the answer is interesting, at least to me. Now, hey there, this is technically a review, so let me quickly get my complaints out of the way. Minor spoilers ahead. So, I have a very short list of issues with DMC5. Dante's battle theme sucks. I can't stand screamo vocals, and while I think the subject matter of the song is interesting, Dante never hints at him feeling inferior for his devil heritage in-game. Also, Subhuman is just a really edgy song title. I think it would have fit decently well with Reboot Dante, and I have a suspicion that was the inspiration. I don't like the Hell Judicas and Furies. The Hell Judicas have wonky attacks that can hit from anywhere and from off-screen, while also being ridiculously difficult to stagger. The Fury enemy heavily limits your abilities. You'll find one thing that works on it and do it every time. These are minor complaints. I can learn to live with them, and I'd even go so far to say there were enemies in other Devil May Cry games I found more annoying, like the Doulahan in DMC3, and especially the Blitz in 4. The environments in the game fall off pretty hard. Once you get into the tree, everything just starts to blend together. Functionally speaking, it's a step up from Devil May Cry 4's literal reusing of levels and annoying traps, but no game has yet reached the heights the series started at in the first game in terms of having a memorable world. My final complaint will have to wait until we talk about the characters. Let's stop for a moment and really appreciate this game. I've primed you with some negativity, but we're washing that off. To me, this was the undisputed game of the year. It's rare that a game just nails shit like this. Dante and Nero have never been better. With Nero in particular, it was a huge jump. I just felt like Nero was missing something in DMC4, and it works out that the fix for this was Nero losing something. His arm. The Devil Breakers are great. I'm not sure how I feel about them not being hot swappable without destruction, yet I am perfectly fine with their current implementation. It's almost like Nero has style switching now, going from a simple button press to a button press that has a rotating cast of features. The rest of his moveset is relatively unaltered, yet I went from being lukewarm on Nero to, and I'll admit this, liking him just as much as Dante. Dante is crazy in this game, what can I say? More weapons as usual, but now you can equip a larger arsenal than he has ever had access to in the past, doubling up with the ability to customize that arsenal. With the addition of Sin Devil Trigger, Dante also gains part of that feeling you get with Virgil where you feel like you're playing a boss character. It doesn't last long, and you can call it a crutch, but in terms of an advantage you earn and invest in during gameplay, it doesn't get much better than this. Throw on Devils Never Cry as his battle theme and you're sure to enjoy what he has to offer. V is interesting. I applaud the attempt, really. Not referencing any interview or dev info, this is just my opinion, but I think the idea behind V was to feel something like a chess master, but with much less brain power needed. I will say when you've got all the summons running around, you're doing a taunt with V, and that music is hitting triple S, it does feel pretty damn good. It's a feeling of mastering indirect control you rarely get in video games, and certainly this is the first time in a high-octane action game like this. This is where I start answering the question, how do you bring back a series? Specifically, a series like Devil May Cry. I don't want to be a revisionist historian and say DMC was unpopular, but we have to admit it wasn't exactly a blockbuster franchise. Resident Evil, by comparison, got like a dozen mediocre movies, while DMC couldn't muster one. When returning to this well, Capcom had to decide if they were looking to appeal to longtime fans or aim for new ones. Just putting 5 in the title could be considered a risk. New fans may not want to jump on so late into the bandwagon's journey. That's why it's so damn common to see numbers dropped, even in direct sequels. God of War on PS4 is God of War 4, but they wanted to make sure it could be treated as a jumping on point, so it just became God of War. Interestingly, I think Capcom was much more aimed at an existing audience. Story-wise, the plot of DMC5 is pretty reliant on some old-school knowledge. It's pretty imperative that you know who Virgil is. Let's move back the curtains and just say plot probably isn't why you're playing Devil May Cry. I think Capcom does a pretty good job often with Devil May Cry stories, but don't be mistaken, we're here for the gameplay. If an interesting plot was the primary sales motivator for action games, then we'd all have copies of Drakengard. Identifying the relative importance of plot, Capcom decided for a short History of DMC video on the main menu to tie people over. The new fans are covered, old fans are likely clued in and just happy to see Dante say Malay Island. Gameplay-wise, they fell upon old tricks. It's well known that Nero was created to feature a moveset that's far easier to understand than Dante. With the addition of Devil Breakers, Nero has become a bit more complex, but they're not that hard to understand, at least compared to what Dante offers. Then we have V. V is an odd one. From a conceptual perspective, he sounds like he could be immensely difficult to control, but V isn't difficult to play. His combos aren't complicated, and you can spend meter to have your guys control themselves. To a new player with no real idea of what Devil May Cry is supposed to be, I doubt V would be overwhelming. From my perspective though, V inherits Nero's big issue from 4. He's just missing something. He's too simple and you really have to strain yourself to unlock any further potential. On top of that, at DMD, I just straight up find him unfun to play. He's got a cute gimmick, but Dante Must Die does not give you the room to breathe and have fun with it. If you are a new or returning fan though, he should come across on a first playthrough as interesting without complexity. Dante doesn't show up until Mission 10. We're technically halfway through the game here. He starts out more complex than you're likely used to. For the first time, his fists are also his feet. I totally get Dante inflicting some choice paralysis. While I do wish he had a bit more screen time, the idea that Dante should wait until you're used to this kind of flow is an idea I think has merit towards a more casual audience and those who are returning from a long absence. Something else that's really hard to tell if it was done intentionally is the meme value of DMC5. I saw a lot of streamers react to Dante's little dance. The trailer got plenty of reactions for sure. Bury the Light anyone? Okay, that was later. Maxor had his fun too, although that's so transformative you can hardly say the devs had any influence on that. Can't stress this enough. I'm thinking most of this was a happy accident, but nonetheless it was important in getting DMC back in the public eye. Really, bringing a video game franchise back is all about onboarding. This isn't a fun process, but when plot is less of an issue, you can get away with more. Another factor that helped DMC5 is that people really wanted it. It was an exciting reveal. Let's bring up God of War again. I don't want to insult any fans here, but God of War had lost the public hype. If the PS4 God of War was just another game like Ascension, then no one outside of the GOW faithful would have cared. This is a case where a soft reboot could be considered a good idea. DMC5 benefited from being a series that was anything but stale. So anyways, this was supposed to be short, so TLDW, here's how Devil May Cry 5 successfully revived the series and made it more popular than ever. 1. By appealing to fans by faithfully using the original timeline. 2. Creating a token info dump for new players. 3. Introducing difficult mechanics at a slow pace. 4. Introducing references longtime fans would enjoy, but new fans don't need to know. 5. Being memeable. And 6. Finally, being good. All in all, I think DMC5 was a huge success. I will definitely talk about it more someday, and I'm just happy it's here. People will say, oh, X or Y helped me through a tough time, and well, for me, knowing that my favorite franchise was faithfully revived from the dead does bring some good feelings whenever I think about it. Most of the footage you saw in this video came from my very first playthrough. I recorded the whole thing, and I basically never do that. I'm happy to have this first experience recorded too. I actually do watch it occasionally, just to get some of those memories back. So, what are some other games that successfully revived dormant franchises? Alternatively, what are some games that revived stale franchises? Tell me what you think and more. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching, Happy New Year, and I'll see you around soon. Thanks for watching.